Hello and welcome to QuickTip 74, and in this video what I'm going to do is a very simple program that just shows you how you would go about finding the highest pivot on a chart. And the reason I'm doing this is because I recently released tutorial 182, and that showed how to find the highest pivot within a certain number of bars. This will do it for the whole chart. In other words, as the program goes through each bar, you can see this example here, it finds the first pivot, that becomes the highest, and then if there is a pivot higher than that, that becomes the highest pivot, one higher than that, that becomes the highest. And then if you get to the end of the chart, you'll see that the value hasn't really changed much for a lot of this chart. It's a daily IBM chart, whereas the tutorial 182, that was only showing the highest within a certain number of bars. And tutorial 182 is a lot more complicated to write. This is very straightforward. So let me show you the program. You'll first of all notice that we don't need any of the complicated dictionary and vectors and so forth that we had in tutorial 182. Instead, all we do is at the end of each bar, we look for high pivots, and we do that using the standard syntax, the same syntax that we used actually in 182. And if that is a number other than -1, then it means there is a pivot. Now, a couple of things to notice here. Because we're going through each bar and checking if it's a pivot, the length that we're looking back only has to be equal to the right strength plus 1. And when this runs, the values are output into O pivot price and O pivot bar. We're not going to be using O pivot bar. So when we find a pivot, we need to plot that, and we plot it right strength back, because clearly we need a number of bars on the right and a number of bars on the left. So we're not going to confirm a pivot until those right strength bars have gone by. So we plot it back a number of bars. But then we need to check this new price. Is it higher than the highest pivot value that we've got so far? So at the beginning, pivot val is going to be 0. The very first pivot price that it finds is going to be greater than 0. So we're going to say, is that pivot price greater than 0? Yes, it is. So the pivot val becomes the first pivot value. But as we go forward, looking at more and more bars, then you will find, or we will find, that as a slightly higher or higher pivot bar is found, then that will become the piv value, because it's greater than piv val. And then simply all we do is just on each bar we plot this piv val, again plotting back right strength. That is all there is to it. Very straightforward, but a useful technique for finding the highest value of something as you calculate through the bars on a chart. Anyway, I hope you find it useful. Thank you.